We've worked our whole lives, saved and invested just to achieve financial freedom, and been led to believe that instead of painting the perfect financial picture, everyone's plan is the same. But the truth is, no one is like you, and you deserve a financial strategy just as unique as you are. How do you navigate the complexities and volatility of a financial environment that just never sits still? And how do you find the guidance you need? Who do you trust with the wisdom to paint your financial masterpiece? You've arrived. This is the Wealth Council. Thanks so much for joining us on the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson, joined by independent advisors from around the country to answer your questions that you've been dealing with and are about to ask as you enter retirement. Mark Henry out of the Carolinas, Joe Wilson III joining us out of Cincinnati, and out of Dallas, Texas, Scott Winstead. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. I want to start with Social Security if we can, because I think this is probably... it creates a lot of the questions that we have with people out there. It's the largest bucket. A lot of people say, well, why would I have a question about Social Security? Don't they just tell me what to do? You address this so much, Scott. I want to start with you on why this is so important to ask more questions about what you may be or may not be told about Social Security.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, Brad. You know, Social Security is one of those things, guys, that might be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, decision in someone's retirement. You know, a lot of people don't give it the credit that it's probably $1 million or more dollar decision over someone's retirement. Yeah. And a lot of times I find, hey, we're taking more time to plan our summer vacations than we are about how to really think about and plan when to take Social Security. So it's one of those things that absolutely needs to be addressed in terms of the overall retirement picture.
Yeah, no question about it. But it's one of those things that nobody addresses because their current financial firm, the big box retailer, gives them no help there. So then you pick up the phone, you call Social Security. How much help do you get out of those? None. They're not allowed. They literally are prohibited from telling you when you should claim. So they're left with this quandary. And I like to break it down like this. If you're watching right now, and let's say you've saved no money for retirement, you're like, hey, we're just broke. Well, here's your plan. As soon as you don't have a paycheck, you need to go file for Social Security no and get some money coming into the house. Yeah. But for everybody else, everybody that's actually saved money for retirement, there is an actual mathematical plan and reasons why you, and it'll be different than other people, no cookie cutter plan, why you should claim now versus later. Now, there's still some gray areas sometimes, but there is a written plan because it affects so much of your other dollars you've saved for retirement, right, Joe?
That's right. You cannot look at it in a chamber. And I think that's where I think a lot of folks misunderstand Social Security planning. Well, that's very clear. If you live really long and you delay, you're going to get more. The challenge is what you just said. If you're married and one spouse has health issues and the other one has longevity, that should affect it. Because what you have to realize is that income coming out, it's not just Social Security, but it's how Social Security works with your other assets. Right. That could be exposing you to major, what we call legislative risk and tax implications and affecting the whole picture differently.
Here's the thing. We're getting bombarded with emails, digital marketing, phone calls. Come learn about Social Security. And we're also being scared into saying, by the way, Social Security is going away in a decade, maybe less than a decade. We're being told that it's going to be bankrupt by 2033. Yeah. You smile, Mark, but is it a real fear that we should have?
Well, I think every time there's an election, at least in my lifetime, one party or the other is claiming that if you vote for the other guy, they're going to kill your Social Security. You know, pushing grandma off the cliff. I remember those videos in the 90s and stuff. Here's the bottom line. There's going to be Social Security reform. There's no doubt about it. The system is not working the way it should. Does that mean that it's going to affect me or you? Probably not the same as it would affect a 20-year-old. Sure. They may have to work to 80 to get Social Security. Can't say, don't know. Yeah. But I know this. There is a mathematical plan of when you and your family should take it. And it's going to involve looking at your other assets, your income needs, and how taking Social Security early versus midlife. You know, 62 is the first time. You know, then you have, for most people, 67 or so is the next time. That's full retirement age. Or the longest you can go is 70.
For now.
For now, right now. That could change. That is up for discussion. But at the end of the day, it has to be part of a holistic plan that looks at every other asset and the tax qualifications of those assets.
It's an art and a science. But the point is, there's so many other factors that go into it. And you owe it to yourself when you're planning your retirement to get a custom plan,
Yes.
an income plan to know you're going to be okay and to maximize these dollars, because let's face it, these are not dollars that the federal government and the IRS and they just give us.
It's not an entitlement program.
We paid into, and you want to get the most you can out. Now, most can be the top dollar. It could just be the most in your situation. Right? It could be different for you, but it's got to be custom.
Scott and Joe, I only know one person that I would say Social Security actually worked out fabulously for. Ida Mae Fuller, the first Social Security recipient. She put $22 or something in during her lifetime, and then went on to live over 100 years old and collected $22,000. So for a $22 investment into the program, she got $22,000 back.
But that
How's
is the
that going to work for
reason-
anybody else?
But that is the very reason we're having this conversation.
That's
We're
exactly
hearing
right.
Why we're underfunded, because we are living longer. I think it's so important. You said something earlier, which is it's not just presidential elections. Realize if you're 65 and we got a 30-year retirement, that's 15 more elections where legislative risk can hit you. What do we mean by that? Well, Social Security was designed to never be taxed. And it changed under Ronald Reagan.
That's right.
And then it changed again under Bill Clinton.
That's correct.
It is underfunded. In Congressional Budget Office, depending on which article you want to read out of there, we're on a TikTok where they're saying if we don't make some changes, we're going to see a reduction.
Correct.
People vote at this age. But what's so important is understanding that when you're planning out Social Security and the income you're taking, it is the tax ramifications and the legislative risk, how it affects all of your assets. And that's where most folks, I feel, mess this up because they just say, it's just Social Security. It is 3D chess.
I mean, aren't we having people walk into all of your offices and say, why would I need to know about this? Don't I just do it when they tell me to do it?
Well, yeah, a lot of times, folks are looking at these cookie cutter programs. They're looking at an online calculator.
Their neighbor told them. Their neighbor told them what
exactly,
to do.
or a family member.
Okay.
But the thing is, if you haven't shared your entire background with someone, your health, the age difference between the spouses,
The income needs,
right,
all the
all
assets.
the stuff. If you haven't shared that with someone, you're not getting accurate information.
Correct. 100%.
Gentlemen, you've enlightened us. Call now. Call the number below, scan the QR code, and receive your own Wealth Council Social Security Maximization Report. Don't waste any more time. The Wealth Council continues after this.
Have you opted out of the volatile markets by putting your money in cash? Find out how much you could be losing coming up next.
For your free Social Security maximization guide from the Wealth Council, call 844-463-3466. Taking part in getting the most from your Social Security with this guide costs you nothing. Not taking part can cost you and your spouse a lot. Discover strategies that fit your unique situation and help you make the most of every dollar. Call for your free Social Security maximization guide from the Wealth Council, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson. We're going to talk about losing money. Popular? How about losing money safely? Is there actually such a thing? I'm Brad Johansson with independent advisors from around the country. Brad Olson out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Mitch Lyons out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Gentlemen, I want to talk about cash. You've obviously heard the term cash is king, right? And when things get volatile in the market, people tend to go to cash. It's safe, right? That's the safe part of it. Okay, let's talk about a volatile market in 23. S&P up 26%. NASDAQ up 55%. Gold was up 13%. International stocks up 15%. And cash was at 5%. Mm-hmm. And everybody's saying, if I'm going to be safe, I'm going to go to cash. What's the misnomer, Brad?
Well, cash is a natural reaction for people when they're getting beat up in the market and they don't know where to go or what adjustments to make. They go to cash. And the psychology is it's going to be there. It's going to be safe. It's not going to fluctuate up and down. The problem is, and losing money safely is generally inflation, loss of purchasing power is going to be higher than the rate that you're getting on a CD, for instance. Great, CDs are 4 or 5%. They used to be less than 1%, but inflation's higher than the rate you're getting. Your purchasing power is declining.
Is it a change of understanding year to year, Mitch, or is this something we just have to have a hold of?
I think there's a place for cash, and people need to understand that. It's for short-term needs, right? When they don't have the time or the stomach to lose dollars that they need in the short term. But as far as an overall plan, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have money that's there for the long haul, earn 5%. Now, granted, some of us were doing, backflips because 5% sounds pretty good relative to what they've been getting the last few years in cash. But 5%, again, if inflation's 7 or 8%, doesn't make a lot of sense. So in the big picture, cash is not the place you want to be for your long-term planning.
And it's all relative. I remember 1980, the prime rate was 21%. Mortgages were 14 or 15. You could get CD money at 18%. That sounds awesome, except they're losing purchasing power. So you need cash. Cash needs to be a part of your overall investment portfolio. But to try to build long-term wealth sitting in the bank relative to inflation, it's not going to work.
Well, which means people are staying away sometimes from financial advisors because they say, I need to be more safe.
Yeah.
If I'm just going to sit in cash, then I'm going to be safe. Okay, what's your plan? And the problem is you have people coming in and going, hey, I've been safe for a while. What do you see with that safety?
We see the worst one I saw was he went to cash in 2008 and stayed there. Missed the biggest bull run in the market in history. Now, that's an example of, okay, I'm protecting my money, I'm going to cash, but you don't have a plan to get back in. He didn't have a plan to manage his portfolio,
It's emotional
or
reaction,
his investments, so that he can work towards his retirement goals. He wasted time.
It's exactly that. It's letting the tail wag the dog. It's letting emotion drive your investment decisions. And without that plan, if you had a plan, you don't need to let the emotion take over. You've got the plan, you know how it's designed, and if you've properly constructed it with a professional that's their expertise, you don't have to worry about those fluctuations, because you've got the plan in place to mitigate the risk and the long-term nature of your plan.
And the other thing the planning does, having a plan and an advisor, is it takes the emotional reaction out of it. You don't go, oh, I got to get out of the market. Right, that's an emotional reaction, and many times that's not the right thing to do.
Both of you have said that cash has to be a part of your plan. Is it become an overwhelming part of many people's plans, which is why the losing money safely thing has become such a pay attention to?
Yeah, I've seen it, with a number of folks that have, come to us and again, out of fear, they've sat in cash and obviously missed a ride back, right?
Yeah.
It comes down to when do you get back in, right? And there's no crystal ball. Nobody's got there's talking heads on TV that are going to tell you good and bad. There's bulls and bears on any given day. So you need to have a more long-term plan and hey, what is your risk tolerance? And let's build it around that, and knowing that, yes, cash, there's a place for it. Again, short-term needs, your next years of income. Hey, let's not risk that in the market. But the longer term play, if you're going to retire at 65 and live 25, 30 more years, we've got a longer term to ride that risk and mitigate that risk over. And sitting in cash for 30 years isn't the best solution to that.
We'll leave no stone unturned. That includes cash, so that we can build a written financial plan just for you. Call now. And the Wealth Council will complete a written financial plan that's specific to your needs. Call, click the QR code. We'll make the plan for you. Wealth Council returns after this.
Are you preparing to make your retirement funds work for you while not taking too much risk? While there is no substitute for sitting down with an independent financial advisor, why don't you learn the strategies of investing as well? Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now to learn about investment strategies that align with your goals. Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now. 844-463-3466. That's 844-463-3466.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson with our advisor spotlight with a very special advisor today who has an undergrad in finance, graduated summa cum laude, law degree, University of Florida, magna cum laude, tax law degree, NYU, global MBA out of the London School of Economics. I guarantee you there's more lists that's going to come after this. Rebecca Walser out of Tampa, Florida. Nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
People go through this list. Where did that come from? Where did the drive come from to do what you're doing right now with this full list?
I know it's a little bit of a psychotic ambition, but it's true.
But it's working.
It is. I had a really personal and I would say probably traumatic experience at 4 years old that I remember. The lights in my bathroom and our house were off. They were out. I thought that I maybe broke the bathroom light. I turned it off, on, and it wasn't coming on. So I went and told my mom, Mommy, I was 4 years old, that the lights won't come on. And she just didn't say anything. She just took me by the hand and took me to my father, and they both sat me down and they said, honey, there is something in life called bills, and you have to have money to pay your bills, and if you don't have enough money to pay your bills, then your lights can go out. And it impacted me so greatly that I knew I was going to figure out this thing called money. I was going to not have my lights go off when I was an adult. And those 4 college degrees that you listed, Brad, I don't have one extra credit hour. I knew exactly what I was doing every single time, and I have a goal, and I went straight for it.
You're telling me at 4 years old, you had a mindset. I'm going to change the financial world and the way that I live just because of this one traumatic event?
I think I had the mindset that I was going to figure this out and it wasn't going to happen to me, and that has parlayed into I'm trying to help everyone else figure it out too, and it's not going to happen to them.
I've watched you. It's a passion. This isn't just I'm going to do something next. Why are you so passionate about this? Because, you love finance, you love math, you love economics.
Love it.
Why do you want to meld this into changing other people's lives who may have a light story of their own?
Well, I think that I am a believer in freedom and capitalism, and that everyone, no matter their circumstances of their birth, can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and make something of themselves. I live in the greatest country on earth that allows you to do that. I'm aware of all of the other places that don't allow you to do that are totalitarian, communistic, controlled, economies, and we don't have that here. And that is what everyone in America should be so passionate about. Our country's lost its way a little bit. We'll find our way again, but my passion comes from everyone can have a slice of the American pie.
This becomes about relationship. Each time you have a new client come in, what do you want to do in changing lives with people who come in who are so confused, not sure where they're going to go, and the main fear is, am I going to have enough to live on when it's all done?
I have practiced finance and tax law exclusively, and when I really went into advising, I just realized that the traditional status quo conventional advice is so outdated and outmoded. Pre-tax wealth building, 100% risk on in the market. There's so many statistical, mathematical ways to improve those results that aren't being shared and disseminated by Wall Street for their own internal reasons, that that's where the passion comes from. Help these people understand how the world really does work.
We're glad you're out there.
Thank you.
Appreciate your advice, your knowledge, your understanding. I can't wait for what's next.
Thank you.
Rebecca, thanks. Thank you for being with us. Wealth Counsel continues after this.
Who are you trusting with your life savings? Is bigger always better? Find out when we come back.
Think of how much you've saved in your 401k, 403b, or TSP retirement accounts, okay? You have that number? Great. Now, subtract 20 to 30% from that number for taxes. That's how much you actually have saved. Call the Wealth Counsel at 844-463-3466 right now for your free retirement tax guide. Your 2024 tax guide is free for the viewers of the Wealth Counsel, so call now, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
Welcome back to the Wealth Counsel. I'm Brad Johansson with independent advisors around the country answering some of your questions. Joining me, Chris Bowman out of California and Joe Wilson III out of Cincinnati. Gentlemen, nice to be with you. I want to talk about bigger is better because that's what we hear, right? Bigger is better. I'm joined by 2 independent advisors who just happened to start at bigger. My question to you, Chris, is bigger, better when it comes to the financial world and the advisors that you're dealing with?
I think when it comes to a financial planner, you're not looking for bigger is better. You're looking for someone who can give you the personalized service, the touch that you need, look at all of the details, someone that's going to be there for you over the long term, someone that takes interest in your family, someone that when you sit down with, not just that one time, but you feel comfortable with them then, but you can see yourself in the tough times. What happens when I'm in a tough time and I need to sit with my advisor? What's it going to look like then? Do I want to know that person? Do I want them to know me? Do I want them to know my family? And you're not going to get that with bigger, right? You're going to get that with better, with someone who's individual, focused on you and your family.
I think it comes down to when we look at our practices, I know you and I were talking about this, it comes about really specializing and helping folks in those retirement years. And that's where I feel there is a difference between where the bigger corporate world is now and what we do, because it's not just about growing. That's so important. We have to have assets that grow. But think about this, when you retire, it's now we're taking that income out. And so it becomes a little bit of a different world. There needs to be a little bit more specialization on retirement income strategies and how does the tax plan work together. Those are things that you and I, that's a bad word if you say it back in the big corporate area.
Well, see, I want to bring that back to some of these, because I hear from a lot of people, if you go to one of these bigger firms, there are things they're not talking to you about, can't talk to you about. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And one of the things when you get with a bigger firm is there's an overall sort of regulation and goal-setting mentality. And a lot of big box firms have gotten in trouble for this, right? Selling widgets, in other words. Without mentioning any companies, you go in and there's a preconceived notion of what needs to happen in that meeting.
Yeah.
I need to sell you a certain amount of mutual funds. I need to sell you a certain amount of life insurance.
Does that boost the stock price?
I need to refer you to our banker. I need to do all these things. When you go to an independent financial planning company, you should be talking only about you.
That's right.
When you sit down with an independent planner, there should be nowhere to get. That planner should have nowhere to get. In other words, when I sit with someone, I don't have a preconceived notion of where I'm getting. All I'm doing is sitting with you, finding out about you, and then we're identifying how we can help you in your retirement planning.
It is individualized. It is putting together a tax plan. How are the money that you've saved your entire life going to be most effectively passed on to you and your family going forward? How do you do that efficiently and not efficiently? How do you make sure you have income in your household more than you have breath in your body, that you never outlive that money? There is a difference. It's why when you break your arm, you go to an orthopedic specialist, because they specialize in that. One of the things that we do, I know in the independent world, is we specialize so much with just modern retirees. And it's not just how big is your number, because that's what helps the stock price, and take out less this year because that helps the stock price. No, how does this money affect you and your family and more efficiently? That is a big difference between the big corporations and independent financial
Joe,
advisors.
I've talked to you about this before, that a lot of people in walking into any of these firms are dealing with fear. There's a lot of fear. I've done it wrong. I don't want to tell anybody I've done it wrong. I haven't got enough. I'm scared about going forward. Maybe if I walk into one of these bigger firms, they've seen all of this stuff before, and I don't have to say any of that stuff. There's some shame that's involved in this, Chris.
Yeah, there is. Matter of fact, we had someone walk in our office just, it was 2 weeks ago, and they wouldn't even sit down. They were so nervous. And they had plenty of money saved for retirement. They have a spouse who's sick. They want to just stay home and take care of the spouse, stop paying for the full-time care for the spouse, but so scared to even get started. This same person was in my office just yesterday, so comfortable, smiling, everyone's coming in and talking to them. I think with an individual firm, the financial advising firm, you get to know the client gets to know the staff. You want an advisor who has staff behind you. You want to, when you can't talk to the advisor, maybe they're in an appointment, there's a whole team behind that advisor that you can talk to, right? Someone to make you feel comfortable, because every day isn't comfortable when you're talking about your financial
doesn't
status.
this come down to one word, Joe, and that's trust?
It's trust and perspective, and I think that's the difference, because I know when we probably started out, we'd be lucky to see one person a month, because, someone's just coming in and maybe called that day. We're seeing 20, 30 people a week, and they're all around that same retirement goal-setting area. It's what we do in special. So we have the perspective of wherever you are in your retirement journey, but the perspective is tilted to how does this work in the distribution phase when you're taking money out? How do we do it most tax efficiently? Where do we start that income? Where should we delay that income? Are the vehicles that we're investing in protecting and hedging us against future legislative risk? That's what independent fiduciary financial advisors do differently.
And the experience that comes along with that, right? 80 to 90% of financial advisors fail and are out of the business within 2 to 3 years.
Boy, that's the truth.
So you need somebody that can stick around, has experience, has done this every day, and can lead you. You want a leader is what you want.
You need a plan, including an in-depth analysis of your current plan. How about, do your risks align with your current age or goals? Call now for a Wealth Counsel written plan designed specifically for you. Call now. Wealth Counsel returns right after this.
What is the difference between an independent financial advisory firm and a financial advisor that represents a big box corporation? A corporate advisor will often use tools and products designed for and by that corporation. So when you as an investor ask them about a strategy that would work for you, they generally would offer you solutions from that corporation. An independent financial advisory firm typically provides financial advice without the same constraints faced by many of the big box firms. Because they aren't required to suggest specific financial products or companies, they often have the flexibility to provide objective and unbiased recommendations tailored to the unique financial goals and circumstances of their clients. So the one question to ask yourself is, are you corporate or are you independent? Call the Wealth Counsel at 844-463-3466 for your own no-cost tailored plan with an independent financial advisor. That's 844-463-3466 to meet with an independent financial advisor of the Wealth Counsel.
Like the rest of the chaos going on around us, the financial world's constantly changing. Each day seems to bring more questions. Is your advisor answering them for you? What's your level of confidence that you have taxes, Social Security, market volatility, and the rest of it all under control? Maybe it's time for a second opinion. Don't wait any longer. Call now. Claim your written financial plan from the Wealth Counsel. It's a plan that's built just for you to help answer all of those questions we struggle with. Don't settle for average. It's time to talk to someone that you can actually trust. Call or click the QR code now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brad Johansson, and until next time, it's the Counsel's wisdom. It's your wealth.